Have I ever pondered how the Amish managed to cultivate abundant food with minimal exertion? Their time-honored gardening wisdom has sustained families for generations, even as many of us grapple with invasive weeds and meager yields. These 30 Amish gardening approaches employ basic tools and organic practices that harmonize with the natural world rather than fighting it. They offer solutions to frequent gardening challenges, concurrently conserving my time and resources. No sophisticated gear or chemical treatments are necessary. Three Sisters Garden Magic. The Amish employ the Three Sisters technique, cultivating corn, beans, and squash concurrently in a symbiotic partnership. Corn stalks serve as natural supports for climbing beans. Beans enrich the soil with nitrogen, nourishing the corn, while squash foliage expands like a living ground cover, inhibiting weeds and preserving soil moisture. This cultivation method establishes a unique microenvironment, offering partial shade and naturally controlling weeds. Amish cultivators dedicate approximately 70% less effort to weeding these areas compared to standard garden beds. To implement this correctly, I plant corn in groups of 4 to 5 stalks, positioned 3 to 4 ft apart. Once the corn achieves a height of 6 inches, I sow 3 to 4 bean seeds, encircling each group. Following another week, I plant squash seeds in the spaces between the corn groupings. This schedule sequences their development ideally. Initially conceived by Native Americans millennia ago, this companion planting strategy was subsequently embraced by the Amish, who integrated it into their sustainable agricultural methods. The Three Sisters system usually produces 20% greater food output from an identical area when contrasted with cultivating these crops individually. Quilt gardening. For pragmatic purposes, Amish gardens look more like patchwork quilts than linear rows. Although straight rows suit tractors, quilt patterns are more advantageous for those gardening by hand. This configuration involves square or rectangular plots separated by walkways, enabling me to reach plants without treading on the cultivation zones. Accessing plants from all directions means gardeners cover roughly 47% less ground compared to traditional rows. It mirrors choosing between the long way around or the direct path to the smorgasbord, and we all understand which route leads to the meal quickest. Establishing this design necessitates only string and stakes for outlining the garden plots. I make the beds approximately 4 ft across with 2-foot walkways in between. Covering the pathways with wood chips or straw helps keep weeds down. This layout enhances water preservation as well. Uncompacted soil stays porous, taking in water more effectively. Conversely, compressed earth in row gardens can diminish water intake by as much as 40%, demanding more regular the Amish weather forecast. Instead of technology, the Amish depend on nature's cues to direct their planting activities. Woolly caterpillars function as forecasters of winter weather. A broader brown band in the middle implies a gentler winter, whereas a constricted band signals severe conditions. Lunar cycles affect planting timelines. Root vegetables such as potatoes and carrots are sown during the moon's waning phase, while crops growing above ground like tomatoes fare better when planted as the moon waxes. Studies indicate that germination rates can improve by up to 15% when planting coincides with suitable moon phases. 3 natural indicators signal the right soil temperature for planting: oak leaves attaining the size of a squirrel's ear, plentiful dandelion flowers, and maple trees exuding sap. When these events happen concurrently, the soil usually has warmed to 50 to 55 degrees, which is optimal for the majority of vegetables. These signs are documented in Amish agricultural almanacs, tracing back to the early 1800s, proving their dependability through steady correlation with measured soil temperatures. Having monitored these patterns for generations, the Amish possess localized climate insights that frequently turn out to be more precise for individual garden areas than broad weather predictions. Year-round planting calendar. For the Amish, gardening is an ongoing year-round endeavor. Winter serves as a crucial planning period when families draw garden layouts on graph paper, marking each plot with planting schedules and succession strategies. As soon as spring vegetables are gathered, the identical area accommodates fall crops. Amish gardens are perpetually active. They simply transition roles. Succession planting guarantees uninterrupted yields. Rather than sowing all the lettuce simultaneously, small quantities are planted every 2 weeks, ensuring a steady supply of fresh greens throughout the season. Planting is guided by generational calculations, 15 to 20 tomato plants per individual for immediate consumption, and preserving 10 to 15 pole bean plants and 10 libs of seed potatoes per person, which produce approximately 100 libs. These proven techniques assist in cultivating sufficient food for 9 to 10 months from a garden roughly half the dimensions of a tennis court. Zone gardening for less work. Have I ever found myself trekking across my whole garden merely to cut a bit of parsley for my meal? The Amish would surely disapprove of such inefficiency. Their zone gardening strategy organizes plants based on their maintenance needs, eliminating innumerable steps over the course of the growing season. Picture my garden partitioned into 3 straightforward zones: daily, weekly, and monthly. The daily zone is situated nearest my kitchen, and this sensible layout recommended books. The sole product I will endorse on my channel is a book authored by Claude Davis, an experienced prepper, detailing 126 superfoods and conservation techniques from critical periods like the Great Depression and wartime, which are unobtainable elsewhere. I chose to promote his book because my generation is the final one capable of passing these skills and knowledge of superfoods to our offspring or grandchildren. It would be regrettable if this knowledge concerning highly nourishing foods and preservation strategies for surviving crises vanished. Additionally, a book concerning herbal treatments by Nicole is available in their store. If I am viewing this broadcast on television, I can search for my channel, Frugal Solutions, using my phone or tablet, and locate the books by selecting the link provided in my channel's description or any other video description. Trash can lasagna composting. Dismiss expensive tumblers and complex systems. The Amish lasagna technique transforms composting into a straightforward procedure utilizing an ordinary plastic trash can equipped with drainage holes. I layer green components such as kitchen leftovers and grass cuttings with brown materials like desiccated leaves, newspaper, or cardboard, akin to assembling a lasagna. What distinguishes this approach? Turning isn't necessary. In contrast to conventional composting, which requires weekly agitation, this technique generates sufficient heat to decompose all materials autonomously. I simply continue adding layers to the top and extract mature compost from the base when it's prepared. An Amish gardener explained how they compost items like coffee grounds, eggshells, and even sweepings from the floor. "Absolutely nothing is wasted in our households," she declared with pride. Following a single season, numerous gardeners cease purchasing fertilizer entirely, conserving funds and enhancing soil vitality through natural means. The rabbit manure secret. Whereas numerous gardeners invest heavily in fertilizers, the Amish depend on an unassuming, almost cost-free substitute: rabbit manure. Different from cow or chicken manure, which require months of composting, rabbit pellets are safe to apply directly to garden beds without damaging plants. One rabbit hutch situated close to the garden can provide enough fertilizer for a whole family's vegetable patch. Hutches constructed by the Amish feature wire flooring and collection trays below, simplifying gathering. I just distribute the pellets around my plants and allow rainfall to handle the integration. The outcomes are remarkable. Produce cultivated with rabbit manure frequently surpasses crops amended with commercial fertilizers. Tomatoes flourish, lettuce becomes luxuriant, and plants exhibit enhanced pest resistance. The soil can distinguish between synthetic chemicals and natural animal products, an Amish farmer informed me. While his neighbors spend considerable sums at garden supply stores, he depends on this uncomplicated technique to achieve spectacular yields. Cover crops to feed soil. As fall approaches and garden plots become vacant, the majority of people let the soil lie exposed until springtime. The Amish, conversely, view this as a squandered chance to enhance soil fertility organically using cover crops, which they frequently refer to as green manure. Instead of letting garden beds sit bare, Amish cultivators promptly sow fast-maturing crops such as rye, clover, or buckwheat. These plants fulfill several roles. They hinder erosion, control weeds, and contribute organic material to the soil. Crucially, however, they draw nutrients up from lower soil layers, rendering them accessible for the subsequent season's vegetable crops. The elegance of this method lies in its straightforwardness. Even if my timing isn't perfect, any cover crop benefits my soil more than leaving it bare. And despite common misconceptions, cover crops perform exceptionally well, even in compact gardens. I don't require vast acreage to reap the rewards of this approach. An Amish farmer I conversed with has not bought fertilizer for 5 years, depending wholly on cover crops to enrich his soil. "The plants perform the labor while I take a break," he remarked with a playful glint in his eye. Come springtime, he merely incorporates the cover crops into the soil 2 weeks prior to planting, enabling all those nutrients to be accessible precisely when his vegetables require them. This organic cycle emulates nature's inherent process of soil creation, a principle the Amish have grasped for many generations. Wood ash, garden gold. Winter nights spent near the hearth yield precious garden fertilizer for Amish households. The residual ashes hold calcium, potassium, and minerals essential for vegetables. Amish families gather fireplace ashes in coffee cans throughout the winter, amassing sufficient free, calcium-abundant fertilizer for their garden by the time spring arrives. For many garden soils, particularly those that are acidic, wood ash frequently proves more effective than commercial lime. Vegetables such as tomatoes, peppers, and root crops benefit from ash amendments, whereas plants preferring acidic conditions like blueberries and potatoes should not receive ash. An Amish gardener observed, "My tomatoes recognize the distinction between purchased calcium and the kind originating from our own fireplace. I apply ash sparingly around mature plants, avoiding direct contact with seedlings. A gentle sprinkle supplies adequate minerals for the entire growing season. While my neighbors purchase bags of lime, I'll be utilizing fireplace residue productively, just as Amish gardeners have practiced for generations." Weeds that work for you. Amish cultivators regard specific weeds as helpful garden companions. Plants such as comfrey, dandelion, and yarrow possess deep taproots capable of accessing minerals from the subsoil that vegetable roots cannot reach. The Amish employ the cut-and-drop technique, snipping these advantageous weeds at the soil line and letting them serve as mulch. Upon decomposition, they discharge stored nutrients right where vegetables require them. These dynamic accumulators offer more to soil vitality than numerous cultivated species. Comfrey foliage boasts potassium concentrations, exceeding those in most commercial fertilizers. These beneficial plants demand no maintenance, flourishing robustly without irrigation or tending. While my neighbors eradicate every dandelion, I'll be nurturing specific weeds that contribute more effectively than many purchased soil enhancers. Clay pot underground irrigation. The Amish utilize an age-old irrigation method involving unglazed clay pots interred in the garden, decreasing watering duration by as much as 70%. The porous nature of clay allows water to seep naturally through its structure. Submerged pots, with their rims visible above the ground, supply moisture straight to plant roots over several days. Whereas surface water dissipates rapidly, this system guarantees that almost all water gets to the plants. Amish gardeners source inexpensive pots from secondhand shops and garage sales. Even fractured pots function flawlessly. Cracks can actually aid in distributing water more efficiently. They enter different pots at various depths according to the specific plant's needs. Amidst a recent dry spell, an Amish community sustained plentiful vegetable harvests while adjacent gardens languished, thanks to this traditional method that provides water precisely where and when plants require it. Mulch secrets for better gardens. The Amish approach to mulching establishes what they term a self-tending garden, utilizing readily available materials from their farms like straw, leaves, grass cuttings, and sawdust. They delay applying summer mulch until the soil has thoroughly warmed. thereby avoiding the cold, damp conditions that can impede plant development. To combat tenacious perennial weeds, they initially place layers of newspaper, shunning glossy inserts, and then cover it with organic mulch. This dual-layer strategy obstructs stubborn weeds but still permits water infiltration. I once dedicated Saturdays to weeding, an Amish woman mentioned. Now, I spend that time gathering flowers. Effective mulching can cut down weeding effort by as much as 90%. For plants susceptible to fungal diseases, the Amish maintain a small ring of unmulched soil around the stems while applying thick mulch between the rows, a subtle point often overlooked by standard gardening practices. Catching rainwater in soil. Although numerous gardeners purchase costly rain barrels, the Amish favor capturing rainfall right in the soil where plants can access it. This method necessitates no storage tanks, intricate downspout setups, or upkeep, only careful garden planning. Through watching the natural path of water across their land during rain showers, Amish gardeners pinpoint chances to decelerate the flow and guide it toward cultivation areas. They construct basic swales, shallow trenches with raised banks on the lower slope, which trap rainwater, permitting it to seep gradually into the earth instead of escaping as runoff. The most crucial instrument for this task isn't a sophisticated level or laser device, but straightforward observation of where water pools and how it naturally moves during rain events. Water indicates its preferred path, an Amish farmer clarified. Our role is simply to assist it in remaining where it's beneficial. Appropriately dimensioned swales create a significant impact in both rainy and dry conditions. In heavy downpours, they curb erosion by containing runoff. During periods of drought, vegetation near these water-harvesting features stays lush, while plants elsewhere falter. An Amish garden I toured stayed fruitful throughout a month-long drought without any irrigation, solely because of intelligently positioned swales that had stored prior rainfall deep within the soil. Rainfall arrives on its own schedule, the gardener grinned. Our task is to ensure it lingers sufficiently to be of assistance. The dew collection trick. Not many gardeners appreciate that morning dew can supply. Morning dew materializes when warmer air encounters cooler surfaces during the night. This condensation temporarily adheres to leaves and stems before vanishing as the sun ascends. Plants featuring wide, somewhat downy leaves inherently gather more dew compared to others. The Amish intentionally incorporate these dew-collecting plants across their gardens to boost ambient moisture. I can readily check if my plants are gaining from dew by putting my hand beneath the leaves prior to sunrise. If my hand feels moist afterwards, nature is providing free irrigation for my garden. Thoughtful positioning greatly influences results. Plants situated in shallow hollows or adjacent to stone walls accumulate more dew than those in open areas, when water usage is limited, preventing standard irrigation. This dew harvesting technique proves especially beneficial. An Amish gardener successfully maintained his thriving lettuce crop during a parched July, relying solely on dew and very little additional watering. Plants can absorb moisture from the atmosphere if we understand how to facilitate it, he clarified with a pleased affirmation. By looking past the conventional watering can, the Amish utilize nature's intrinsic irrigation network, which is frequently ignored by standard gardening approaches. Strategic shade, less means more. Although the bulk of gardening guidance stresses maximum sun exposure, the Amish recognize an unintuitive reality. For certain vegetables, planned shade genuinely boosts output. This strategy appears particularly pertinent as summer heat continually sets new records annually. Typically, lettuce, spinach, and similar greens bolt, run to seed, as days lengthen and temperatures rise. Yet Amish gardens sustain production of these cool season crops all summer long by ensuring they receive afternoon shade. Lofty plants such as corn and sunflowers project shadows that shield heat-intolerant vegetables during peak sun intensity while still permitting morning sunlight essential for photosynthesis. The ingenious part of this arrangement involves utilizing structures or plants that offer shade in summer but permit light penetration in spring and autumn. For instance, Pole beans cultivated on trellises oriented east-west provide shade to the northern side during warmer months, but do not obstruct light in cooler periods when sunlight is beneficial. Through this straightforward modification, an Amish gardener can gather lettuce without interruption, even when neighbors lament that the heat prevents growing greens. Plants resemble people, an Amish farmer shared with me, smiling. Some thrive in the heat, while others appreciate some shade during sweltering afternoons. By comprehending these plant preferences and establishing microenvironments within the garden, the Amish prolong growing periods and enhance yields without extra water or labor, relying solely on intelligent positioning. Plant partnerships that repel pests. When insects infest their gardens, the Amish avoid using spray applicators. Instead, they utilize ingenious plant pairings that organically ward off pests. These plant associations, frequently known as companion planting, establish inherent defense mechanisms without resorting to chemicals. The scientific basis for companion planting entails plant interactions that we are just starting to comprehend. Certain plants emit substances via their roots or foliage that disorient or deter insects seeking particular crop types. Other plants lure advantageous insects that consume garden pests. Through deliberate interspersing of these guardian species, Amish cultivators foster gardens capable of significant self-defense. Tomatoes grown near basil exhibit improved taste and suffer fewer issues with hornworms. Carrots flourish when encircled by onions, as the onions conceal their sugary aroma from carrot flies. Nasturtiums sown throughout the garden function as trap crops, luring aphids clear of the vegetables. An Amish gardener showed me a color-coordinated mapping method guaranteeing that helpful plant pairings are always cultivated together, resulting in garden areas that stay notably free of pests without any spraying. The distance between companion plants is critically important. If too near, they vie for resources. If too distant, their protective advantages diminish. Plants need to be near enough to communicate quietly, but not so close as to quarrel over sustenance, clarified an older Amish woman who had avoided insecticides for more than 4 decades. Her thriving garden, alive with pollinators, yet conspicuously lacking pest harm, served as tangible evidence that these plant associations are genuinely effective. The bug barrier method. An Amish garden's periphery frequently reveals more about their pest control strategy than the crops within. By establishing calculated border plantings around the garden's edges, they effectively construct an unseen barrier that numerous pest insects avoid breaching. Potently scented herbs such as rosemary, lavender, and thyme generate olfactory disruption for many garden pests, concealing the aroma of the vegetables these insects target. Cultivated in thick rows along garden boundaries, these fragrant herbs establish a defensive shield that deters pests and concurrently draws helpful pollinators with their blossoms. The stature and thickness of these barrier plantings considerably affect their efficacy. Short borders may discourage crawling insects, but offer minimal defense against flying pests. The Amish usually establish borders of mixed heights, featuring lower herbs at the forefront and taller aromatic plants positioned behind. For gardeners with allergies to prevalent herbs, substitutes such as scented geraniums, tansy, or specific flowering perennials can offer comparable defense. The insects must exert more effort to locate our vegetables than we do to exclude them, quipped an Amish farmer, whose garden exhibited strikingly minor insect harm despite the absence of chemical interventions. Trials conducted in various communities demonstrated that this straightforward border technique diminished pest issues by up to 80% relative to gardens without protection. Amid the chicken cleanup crew, chickens could be the most neglected garden resource in contemporary America. Yet the Amish have long recognized their utility, extending beyond providing eggs. These avian laborers revolutionize garden upkeep when skillfully managed using a basic portable enclosure, frequently termed a chicken tractor. This light, floorless pen grants chickens entry to designated garden sections while ensuring they remain confined. As the poultry scratch and peck, they consume weed seeds, insect eggs, and larvae, concurrently enriching the soil with their droppings. Following 1 or 2 weeks in a single position, the enclosure is shifted to a fresh area, leaving behind impeccably conditioned garden beds prepared for planting. The scheduling of chicken access is extremely important. Amish cultivators permit chickens in cultivation zones solely between crop cycles or during idle periods, never near actively growing vegetables, which the fowl would eagerly demolish. Autumn garden tidying becomes exceptionally straightforward when chickens undertake the task. They will clear away residual plant matter, eat remaining vegetables, and incorporate everything into the soil via their continuous scratching. "My chickens labor more affordably than any employed helper," chuckled an Amish farmer who constructed his chicken tractor using scrap wood and poultry netting for under $50. This system demonstrates particular effectiveness against stubborn pests, such as squash bugs, whose soil-laid eggs chickens avidly locate and consume. While contemporary gardeners wage perpetual war against insect life cycles, the Amish recruit chickens as partners, forging a natural alliance advantageous to both the garden and the fowl. Fossil dust bug control. When insect infestations surpass the control offered by companion planting, the Amish resort to an ancient remedy, diatomaceous earth. This delicate white powder comprises the fossilized remnants of minuscule aquatic life forms known as diatoms. Although innocuous to humans and domestic animals, it functions like infinitesimal razor edges against soft-bodied insects traversing it. Contrasting with chemical pesticides that deposit detrimental residues, diatomaceous earth operates via mechanical means rather than poison. It compromises the protective waxy coating on insects' exoskeletons, leading to their dehydration. Its efficacy against numerous prevalent garden pests, especially slugs which trouble most vegetable patches, renders it a fundamental component in Amish gardening. Application demands no specialized tools. Amish gardeners utilize kitchen flour sifters, salt dispensers, or self-made dusting devices created from cotton cloth and string. They cautiously distribute the powder onto plant leaves and adjacent soil during dry conditions, endeavoring to minimize contact with beneficial insects. An older Amish gardener displayed sections of her garden for me where slug destruction had vanished entirely following the application of diatomaceous earth. "Those slugs consumed everything I planted before I discovered this powder," she stated. "Now, they seek their meals elsewhere." To achieve peak effectiveness, reapplications are needed after substantial rainfall. However, even incomplete coverage offers considerable protection while preserving the garden's natural ecosystem more effectively than chemical options.